I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Welcome to today's episode of Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm Megan Skidmore, and today I have my new friend Jonathan George with me. We haven't met in person, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you virtually. I can feel the energy in my body. I'm really excited. The school counselor here in my town is the one who suggested that you would be an amazing guest to bring on my podcast. So I'm really grateful to you, Jonathan, for agreeing and going along with this idea. So welcome.
Thank you for having me on here. Yeah, Sunnyvale, I was just there speaking, and so I love that she talked highly of you, and she was like, "You've got to meet my friend Megan." And so I'm really excited about today because I'm hoping we get to unlock things that I never get to speak about or talk about and share about, because it's always about business. It's all about personal branding and how that's helping people become more influential and applying that. But this is the heart of my work and why I do what I do. And so I'm excited to get into this conversation with you.
That just gives me chills because I'll be honest with you. So when I went and looked you up, I did notice there you do mention your orientation. You identify as gay on one part of your website. I think it's in maybe an About Me page. And I thought, wow, I hope he is okay talking about this, because I did notice that your focus is a more business oriented, and that's great. So I'm actually super thrilled to hear that, and that you're ready, or more than ready, obviously, to talk about kind of the story before the story in many ways. These are the things, these are the experiences that shape us.
100%.
And so, wow, I don't know where to start. I'm just thrilled. So let's just share a little bit, Jonathan, about your background, where you're from. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Just
I'm from
your
Sunnyvale,
family.
born and raised in Sunnyvale, Texas, and huge family, come from 5 generations of Pentecostal pastors. And so very spiritual family. More than religious, even though it was very religious, it was very spiritual people, people who spent a lot of time praying and living in their gifts. Very musical family. So very incredible people, very beautiful people, energetically just loving, they're kind, giving. And, that was my life. My grandma has 4 gospel albums. And when she passed away, she had like 800 people at her funeral at 87 and had like 15,000 views on the online Zoom that we had. And I was just like, wow, this lady really had a bigger impact than what we knew. And the same thing is just like with everyone in my family, just very incredible, successful, beautiful people in, the church world. And at 19, when I came out, where my dad asked me, he's like, somebody from my college went to a rumor to my high school, which trickled down to my niece in elementary. And she came home saying, they're saying that Uncle John's gay. And so my dad was like, hey, son, let's go to come to Home Depot with me. And I was like, oh no. I was like, I just knew right then and
You
there
just
that
knew.
intuitively that this was the moment. And, and so my family deeply has loved me, but I will tell you that I went through a lot of spiritual abuse without anyone doing it out of there was no manipulation. There was no like
No intention
no
or
intention of
purpose.
hurting. It was because true fear that I wasn't going to be, I was told I could never go to heaven. I could never walk in the gifts that God gave me. I could never be blessed. And, I served in the ministry and just fully, like, I mean, I was that golden kid who lived. I was at church before
Hmm.
school doing prayer with my
Hmm.
family and led the youth groups, the children's groups, the anything you can imagine. I was involved. I was there. I mean, I was involved with everything, and God was my life and still is to this day in my life. But what happened was that I moved to Los Angeles to be a singer-songwriter. So, I
Hmm.
graduated college with the music education degree, and I went on to Los Angeles. It was 2001. I was on Edmund Mann's Next Big Star, and I was the
Oh,
grand champion winner. And I
okay.
just released my first single, my first music video. I was working on my album, and I got a call from the record label, and they retracted the contract because they found out that I was gay.
Okay.
And at that moment, I mean, I was just devastated by the fact, my team tried to get me married. They tried to change my music. They tried to change
Right.
everything about me. And it took me right back to being that little kid who was
Yeah.
relentlessly bullied for being the creative kid, the one with what I always say, the jazz fingers. That was the one that was this
Hmm.
extra. I
That
was
was
always
you.
performing and creating and happy. I was a loving, just outgoing kid, very vibrant, but called names I didn't know what they meant. All I heard was, "You're not good enough." And then I started thinking about, wow, all the years of my life that I went through the spiritual abuse and told that I couldn't go to heaven, that I could not be blessed, that I could not, do what I was supposed to be doing in my life. And at that very moment, again, it was just like, it was just years of being that framing of you're not good enough. Something is innately
Hmm.
wrong with you. You can't do anything because of this one little aspect of your life as a gay man.
Yeah.
And my team tried to get me married. They tried to change my music. They tried to change everything about me. And I went through a major identity crisis. I just finally crashed. And I was like, I can't take this anymore. And, I went through anxiety, depression. I had suicidal thoughts. I was like, if I can't do what I'm supposed to do in my life, what's worth living? I can't change this about myself. What is, no matter what I could be celibate for the rest of my life, but it doesn't change who I am inside.
Yeah.
And I just fell apart at that moment. But what I said is that I'm not going to lie to the world. I knew that much about myself, that I was going to stay true to who I am and show up powerfully and do what I needed to do. And it led me down this path of self-discovery. And I did a lot of self-discovery, figuring out who I am. But then I started developing all these young talent in Los Angeles, all these young hopefuls that came here to be
Okay.
stars. And what
Uh-huh.
happened was that I found and discovered more about myself by developing other people and coaching
Mm.
these people, helping them break through fears, help them to break through these mindsets that they're not good enough. And by doing that and building these personal brands and building these superstars, now my clients have over 150 million online followers. And
Wow.
and all I always say is that, how do you like those jazz fingers now? You know what I'm saying? And so it helped me be able to, all that I am from my childhood and my upbringing helped me to be able to lead and direct people, to help them be successful in their lives, to be successful in their careers. And
Yeah.
while it was a very painful past, that past has what made me so great at what I do now. And that is helping people know exactly who they are, understand their self worth, understand that they are more than enough to walk in the gifts that God gave them, and for them to be impacts in the world and be
Hmm.
purposeful, beautiful human beings.
Wow. Wow. I'm speechless. Uh, so gosh, where to begin? What a beautiful recap of your kind of your origin story. So that makes sense. We didn't make it to Sunnyvale till 2004. And so you were already long gone. Well, not long gone, but you had moved on. I'm just I'm just so grateful to you. for leaning into your authenticity. As a parent, I see you as a trailblazer
Thank you.
in the early 2000s. And I mean, fast forward to today, even today, but especially then, it's a topic folks don't feel comfortable talking about a lot of the time. And I'm of the opinion that it's stories that touch people and ultimately change hearts. You don't have to
100%.
you don't have to agree with somebody. You don't have to nobody, first of all, there's no two human beings that are going to agree and align on every single issue or concept or anything we can experience or talk about as human beings, right? I think
Right.
what's more productive and helpful to focus on is the process by which we share, the process by which we interact, the things we say, the things we do or don't say or don't do, and the things that are common threads, the things, where we are more alike than we are different. But it's also the differences that create beauty. I mean, there's no, you look at a bouquet of simply roses, that's gorgeous and beautiful. You look at one that has the different shades of greenery and different types of floral, families represented. And there's all kinds of beauty to behold.
Well, Megan,
Yeah.
the whole fact about when we listen to other people, that's when we can understand, right? And so many times, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's world, people aren't listening to one another. They're just pointing fingers
Mm-hmm.
on both sides of the fence. And, I've got many friends on both sides that are just like over it. But it's like, just stop and get in a room
Yeah.
and ask why somebody feels the way that they feel. Because when, I just spoke in Sunnyvale about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And, I put four boys up on the basketball floor and had them all face different directions, north, east, west, and south. And I asked them what they saw. They each saw different things, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was like, but can we agree that we're all standing, experiencing the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, yes. I said,
Mm-hmm.
but depending where you're standing, you're all seeing different things.
That's a really great analogy.
And the whole gym just went, wow, because it's like with the eclipse, it was a total eclipse of the
Yeah.
sun. We can all agree that it was a
Right.
total eclipse. However, depending where you stood in the world, you had a different experience. You saw
Right.
something different. So if you can look at someone and look at that child, and this is what was amazing about my parents, is that they saw Jonathan for the man that I
Mm-hmm.
am,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were able to see that. And I will tell you that I also took my own responsibility in making sure that I showed up powerfully, that I didn't fall into a trap of trying to fit myself into the gay box or, you know what I mean? Like, because so many of my friends, when they come out or they figure out who they are, all of a sudden that's their entire life. And
Yeah.
there's no judgment on that, but I just was like, I refuse to put myself in another box. You know what I mean? I had to live in a Christian box for a long time. I had to live in
Mm-hmm.
a straight box. I had to live in all these boxes. And I was like, this is why the work that I do is so important, because I believe that every single one of us has a personal brand. It's how we show up in the world, but it's our being that we're branding. It is the being that is showing
Mm-hmm.
up in the world. And how do you show up powerfully when you don't know who you are? And we're all saying, be you. But how do you do that when you don't understand who that even is? And
Mm-hmm.
so my goal is for people to understand that you're a being. You're not a label. You're not a parent of a gay son. You are not you're just not
Mm-hmm.
all these different labels. It's okay to
Right.
understand where you are with things, and you can say, okay, here's my parameters of what this looks like. But we are not these things.
Right.
And it's really incredible. I love that you are working with people, helping them being a life coach to people. What you and I do are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I just do it and I package it as personal branding, but it is
Mm-hmm.
life coaching on so many levels. I do have a master's
For
practitioner's
sure.
license in life coaching because I wanted to be able to help people on a more powerful way, even though that's not my focus. But we package people, just every single person needs a personal brand, but it all has to do
Yeah.
with your being. You are
I
not your
hear you.
doing. You're not your doing. You
Hmm.
are your being. It is the being that will make all of your doing successful.
I agree with that 100%. And I hear you on the whole boxes thing. I still find myself, being a parent of a transgender kiddo, like it's put me on my own journey of learning and recognizing all the boxes that I've been putting around myself, putting around people, around life, around the words that I use to define what it is that I'm experiencing or seeing someone else experience. And yeah, to just do away with the boxes. And what I love about what you're saying about it's it's not defining ourselves by what we're doing. To me, that's looking for external cues, looking to the
Yes.
outside to define ourselves versus focus on who we already are, our being. And that means we a journey looking inward.
100%.
And we're not always encouraged to do that. There's so many things in our midst that speak to this idea of defining oneself through external sources, external means. And so, yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
It's the same thing. It's like with pronouns. As a gay man, it's probably a little easier for me to talk about pronouns than somebody who identifies as being straight. But, for me, working with all these youth and these kids, I'm like, hey, it's cool for you to have a pronoun that you identify with, but don't get upset at the world if they don't call you by the right thing. Because when you have done the internal work, you're
Hmm.
confident in whatever somebody calls you. If somebody wants to call me a sweet potato, I don't really care because I know who Jonathan George is. I'm confident
Hmm.
in that. And what you see me as doesn't impact how I feel about myself. And so this is where the confidence, and I keep telling them, I said, listen, you're wanting to be outside of a box, but yet you're getting all of these pronouns that are putting you
Yeah.
further into a box. So at what point do we break these barriers and all of these, the LGBTQ plus
Hmm.
narrative? Why can't it be, rather than it being straight versus the others, which is what it's become, why can't
Yeah.
we just be?
I hear what you're saying, Jonathan. I do. And that is something I've actually I've given a lot of thought to. And I think it's an amazing ideal to work towards and talk about and have discussions like this to get that type of thought leadership out into the universe, to get these ideas circulating. And in the meantime, the coach, the parent in me wants to make sure anybody who's listening realizes that it is also a process. And
Yes.
some kids, youth, whatever, young adults, mental health is such a key component of this, emotional health. And I totally get you about defining yourself from within and being able to not allow someone, like you said, call me a sweet potato if you want, to not allow that to affect you. It for some, it's a work in process.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
it takes a certain amount of emotional resilience, and just like our physical muscles, those need to be exercised and practiced and worked on. And that is what you do with clients. That's what I do with clients.
Yep.
And so I just want to acknowledge that there can be a certain amount of privilege in being able to to even entertain that could be part of my world someday. And 100%, that is what I hope for too, that we can just see each other as soul to soul, heart to heart, just for the humans that we are, see each other for the gifts that we have, the talents, the skills, even for our weaknesses. I mean, can we celebrate it all?
Yeah, that's
They
what I
it,
call being a Flockstar, having flaws and still being a rock star. And for anybody who
that's
knows, I mean, my
awesome.
company is Unleash Your Rockstar. And so I'm always about, being, when you're you, people accept you as you are when you just show up powerfully. And it is a process. Everything you said, I agree with
Hmm.
100%. But I believe that process, it can be minimized and done so much quicker because rather than me being, until I hit 40 years old to break through some of this stuff. And now
Yeah.
that I've been on the other side, I'm like, listen, it's just like as a business owner, I've already been there. So I could take you, what it took me,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars to accomplish and 20, 30 years of going through things. I can get you there in
Hmm.
6 months. right?
Yeah, I
So
hear that.
the process does not need to take so long. And this is where I think, for most of us, and if a parent is listening to this and you're guiding your children, or if a child is listening to this, a kid, a youth, somebody is listening to this right now, the process doesn't need to take as long as you
Hmm.
think it does. If you follow a process, if you get with the coach,
Hmm.
man, you can make it so much quicker. If you follow a
Hmm.
process, you can go through the emotions, you can build the resilience, you can build who you are because, like developing all this young talent. Let me just tell you, these kids come in
Hmm.
here, what you see as a superstar. Well, when I get them, it is, hair every direction. They don't know who they
Hmm.
are. They are so awkward. They're doing weird stuff. And, it's like, okay, let's focus. And I
Hmm.
can break somebody through to the other side and build their confidence in knowing who they are. Confidence is something that you can learn to build.
Hmm.
Resilience is something you can learn to build, and it's all a choice at the end of the day. And going back to like what you were saying, like if we could all see each other as beings,
Yeah.
I will tell you that once I realized, and like I quit thinking so much about myself.
Hmm.
I'd walk into a family gathering thinking everybody was talking about me. I disrupted my whole entire family's belief systems and their thought processes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And once I quit saying everybody's thinking about that, nobody was thinking about that.
Hmm.
Now maybe if I came in looking, different than everybody else, if I'd had changed all these things about myself, some people might have a harder time because that's a
Hmm.
visual situation, right? But I just came inside the house and it's just like now it's like, hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here. Everybody's just seeing me as my core, as my being, because I'm confident in myself. And nobody's thinking about those things. Yeah, they may have conversations about it, but that's their journey. They're trying to figure
Hmm.
something out. But as soon as I had confidence in who Jonathan George is,
Hmm.
I'm able to walk into any situation, and I truly believe people are seeing me for who I am. And I will tell you what changed this a lot. And this is in my book, Unleash Your Rockstar, The Power of You Through Personal Branding, is that when you don't understand who you are, when you don't have that
Hmm.
concept yet, you're still trying to figure that out. You're not feeling confident. You're not sure how to show up in a room. You feel awkward. If you will concentrate on the hook of your brand, it will change how you show up in every setting. So let me just explain this.
Meaning like your self definition, your self
Well, let me explain. So,
concept.
so
Yeah.
as a singer songwriter, man, I've written hundreds of songs, and it's always about the hook, right? You think about your favorite
Okay.
song when it comes on the radio, when that hook comes in, that chorus comes in, you crank that bad baby up, and you're singing it to the top of your lungs, right? It excites
Hmm.
you. But if you
Absolutely.
don't like a song, what do? You push skip. Let's go to the next one, right? So all of us have a
Yes.
hook, something that people, it's an emotional aftertaste that we create when somebody experiences us.
Oh, wow.
So
That
when
is
you
magical.
when you think about
That's
that, you can
cool.
be intentional about how you show up. So when I show up in a room, even when I feel insecure, if I don't feel confident, I said, listen, I'm showing up because I want people to feel seen, heard, and valued when they interact
Hmm.
with me. So that's my only intention.
100%.
So what do you
Yeah.
think people are feeling? What's the energy that they're getting from me when they meet me? They're not thinking about all of these. Everybody's going to think external. There's a brand identity that's there. So those for you who don't understand, I do build personal brands, and so that's what I do
Hmm.
for a living. But there is something that visually we see, and we're making judgments on what we see. That's inevitable. That's just natural. But
Yeah.
what we're going to remember is how you made them feel. How you make me feel is what I'm going to remember about you.
Yeah.
So this is
It's
the
true.
hook of your brand. So if you can focus on this, even when you don't know who you are, you're still trying to figure that out. And I promise it is a life experience because you go through different phases of life. You hit a new experience and you're like, oh wow, how do I deal with this? Who am I in this?
Yeah.
But if you can concentrate on how do I want to make Megan feel when she meets me? How do I want
Yeah.
anyone else when they experience me? That changes my energy. It
It's
changes my
true.
vibration when I show up into a space.
It's true. I've heard a quote, I can't remember, or
Maya Angelou?
maybe, but basically, we may not remember everything a person said, but we always remember how they made us
Yeah,
feel.
that's Maya Angelou.
So if you don't mind if we rewind a little bit, you
Sure.
mentioned when you were younger and you were kind of embarking on this discovery process of your own. Um, you talked about how you used to worry about when you'd walk into a room and what others might be thinking or not be thinking. I think it's very possible there's some folks, youth, perhaps, that are in that period. And can you speak to when you mentioned that you said you came out at 19, really others kind of helped that coming out, which I feel badly you didn't have more say in that. However, you're all in one piece, you're good.
Yeah, we're good.
But can you share? You said you knew when your dad was like, let's go to Home Depot, you knew that this was going to be the talk. Can you speak to what you were experiencing then and why it was like, here it comes? We all have boxes, political boxes, religious boxes, intellectual boxes, gender role boxes, leadership boxes, educational or professional boxes, even spiritual boxes. Have you taken the time to identify yours? Boxes create the belief cages that inhibit our progress, get in the way of our dreams, or impede our personal development. Boxes represent the stories or narratives we have about our lives. Sometimes they even bring up shame, and this is problematic because shame inhibits curiosity, wonder, compassion, inquisitiveness, understanding, questioning, even allowing doubts, expansion, and the cycle repeats. Join me Saturday, December 21st, for a midwinter pause. This is an opportunity to slow down long enough to hear the thoughts and beliefs that are taking up precious real estate in your mind. They may have served you or even protected you at one time, and now they are not just getting in the way, they may cause you harm and impede your growth. I promise you will not regret gifting yourself this 45 minutes of time. And did I mention it's free? Link is in the show notes to register or at my website, click Work With Me.
Well,
Like what that was like for you.
yeah, and the reason why I knew my dad was doing that because he wouldn't let my mom come. And so
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, okay, that's weird because they always do everything together. So, excuse
Gotcha.
me. But, for me, in high school, I had somebody that I was dating and, I'd experimented with girls and I had a boyfriend and nobody knew about him.
Okay.
And so I just was like, it was one of these things where I was kind of like in this, feels like a limbo, like in between lives, trying to figure things out and understand. And I was actually thankful that that this happened this way because it created the conversation that needed to be had. The other thing is that, man, my dad is my biggest mentor. Was my spiritual leader. He passed last year, but he was
I'm sorry.
everything in my life. This man he was a man of love. If there's
Mm-hmm.
one word that I could say for my dad, it was love. He loved me regardless,
I
but
love
there was
that.
there was a lot of things, like when going through this process that, they wanted me to go through I think it's called Genesis or Genesis
Yeah.
X or something, like I don't know, these
Like a
pro
conversion
yeah,
therapy type
conversion
thing.
programs that just destroyed people's lives in a horrible way. I mean, it's just really the most awful thing that I've seen.
Yes.
But I'm blessed because my dad chose to love. And any parent that's listening to this, choose love. Choose love, choose understanding, because at the end of the day, let me tell you, my dad's choice changed the trajectory of my existence.
So you paired that with they were looking into Genesis or whatever that program was called, and you say he chose love. What do you mean by that?
Because just okay, if I tell you
He didn't make
something,
you do the program.
well, he couldn't make me do the program. I was an adult at that time,
Uh-huh.
and but and they
True.
and here's the other thing is that so you and I could say shut up to one person, and depending on the energy of how we said that,
Mm-hmm.
one could be taken as a joke, and one could be taken as really being hateful. Okay, so everything is an energy.
Yes.
Everything has a
Mm-hmm.
vibration. So
Mm-hmm.
when my dad was trying to talk to me about going into these programs or talking to me what the Bible said, none of it was with hate. None of it was done with anger. None of it was done with manipulation to
Mm-hmm.
control me. it was truly out of love. I could feel his love. I could feel the
Mm-hmm.
pain he felt in his heart thinking that I couldn't go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was, we went through major spiritual abuse as kids. Like we would watch these movies about kids getting their head cut off because they wouldn't take the mark of the beast. We would watch people burn in hell with maggots crawling out their noses, all this
Good heavens.
awful, awful
Oh,
things
so
where I was
sorry.
scared to go to sleep as a child. Well, that's just because my parents thought, oh, this is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that the fear
Yeah.
that it was creating in my
Mm-hmm.
life and how it was making me see God as this vengeful old white man upon a throne that
Right.
I was scared to death of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
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 I,
it,
I, I don't think your parents are alone, though. Most from conservative faith backgrounds do the things that they do or did because that's what they knew. And, each generation, I believe, builds upon the next, does
yeah,
things a little bit better. Just like Maya Angelou, I know, did say, when we know better, we
we
do
do better.
better. And so
Yep.
your father acted out of love. He chose love,
And
is
my
what you
my
said.
mom and my stepmom and my family,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
every single one of them. There's been times that were, man, I had to be strong arm. I mean, just tell you, like if I was bringing somebody home for the holidays and nobody would let me stay with them,
Okay.
well, man, I just had to, I'd be like, well, I'm not coming home. I was like, you didn't keep
Because you were bringing a
a man.
same-sex
Yeah.
partner with you?
Yeah. And, it changed. Like, it's just really, it's funny how we as humans,
Bless you, Jonathan, bless you
thank you,
for your grace and your patience and your love too. Yeah.
well, that's the biggest thing right there.
It's both
Showing love
sides.
to my
Yeah.
family. I didn't hate them, didn't be mean to them, and love won. As
Mm-hmm.
the gay community, we're always screaming about love winning. Love wins all things, but yet when faced with adversity, when faced with hate, what we do is we throw hate back as a community. And a lot of people do that as a
Mm-hmm.
natural resistance.
It's a primary instinct, right? Yeah.
Instinct, right? It's fight or flight. But
Yeah.
I chose love in every one of those situations. I said, how can I be the change maker? How can I become the change that I want to see in the world? I can't be a
Yeah.
change if I'm showing up in anger and hate. I can only be a change if I show in love. I am in kindness. I have empathy
Mm-hmm.
towards people. I am understanding. Like, how can I, it took me 19 years to understand who I was. How can I expect somebody to change their thought process overnight?
Yeah.
Everything's going to take time.
It does take time.
And so, I know that not everybody has that love in their family like the way that I did. I understand that. I've heard horrible stories, but love
Mm-hmm.
wins. That doesn't
So,
mean you don't protect yourself from the bad
yes.
family members.
Right. And that's where putting in healthy boundaries is a key part of this journey. And that's to protect your mental health and emotional health, even your spiritual health. If you want
Yes.
to call it your mental, emotional energy, all of those things. That's important too. So I have a couple of things I want to dive a little deeper into. Can you share? You've mentioned more than once. They chose love. I chose love. What did that look like for you as a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old when you said your mom chose love, your stepmom, your dad, your sister or siblings
My siblings, yeah.
chose love? What did that look like? What did that sound like? How was
Well,
love embodied or manifest? Yeah.
I knew that no matter what, my family had me, had my back. But let me just say this. Let me,
Okay.
rewind a little bit further. A lot of times we expect for family to be there when we have never been there for our family. We've always been for ourselves. And this is,
Mm-hmm.
youth are the worst about this, especially in
Mm-hmm.
today's time.
They're
So
learning.
entitled, they're owed everything. And I'm saying this lovingly to every single person. It's not your fault because it's how you were raised to be.
Yeah.
So why would you be any different? I probably would have been the same way had I been raised that way. But when you're all about me, and you go through a difficult situation, whether no matter if this is, your sexuality or your identity,
Mm-hmm.
and then you expect everyone to be more about me. But who were you before all of this began? So the person I was before is what really, I think, funneled this to be what it became. because I was loving to my
Mhm.
family. I was kind to my family. I was a part of something. I didn't just come out and then expect everyone to change their thought process. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
I worked really hard to be the kind of person I wanted around in my life. At a
Yeah,
younger age, I started my journey on fourth grade on my self-development. And I know that's not probably
that's
the
young.
normal,
Yeah, that's young.
but it's something that innately began in my life. It's just like if
Mhm.
somebody innately could pick up a football and throw it
Mhm.
50 yards, you know what I mean? Or pick up you start flipping around and do
Playing the
gymnastics or
piano or
playing the
whatever.
piano or be able
Yeah.
to do math quizzes at a fourth grade level. I just began and understood all of this. And so I started
Yeah.
working on it and I became the kind of person that I looked up to, that I wanted to be more like. And
Mhm.
so I do want to say that leading into all this, that I had already done so much work on myself.
Okay, that's fair.
And so, I just want to be fair about that, that it
Yeah.
wasn't just like
No,
me
I
showing
appreciate
up and
that.
being like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It takes two to tango. It's two people.
Yeah. And for the parents who maybe are experiencing not quite exactly what Jonathan is expressing, you know, that's okay too. There's all kinds of experiences. There are
All
all
kinds.
kinds of ways of going through this journey. Fill in the blank. So, you know, just want to validate that. It doesn't mean anybody's doing anything wrong. It just means it is. And it's an opportunity to take a look. Okay, what do you want to do moving forward now that you have a certain awareness?
Hmm.
So you had then, if fourth grade is pretty young, if you had that awareness of yourself, self development, I'm assuming that your spiritual development somewhat coincided with that. They're all interconnected. One of the things I like to talk a little bit about is kind of shedding the shame around having questions and doubts as come up on a faith journey. And I'll even include, any journey really, but the intersection of my podcast is faith journeys, conservative faith background. Can you think of a time? It could be when you were younger, it doesn't have to be. And when I say younger, I mean your young adulthood, where you kind of had to come face to face with some questions in order to move forward. You had to face some doubts, like this doesn't seem to make sense, or this doesn't really resonate with me, even if you didn't quite have that specific
Right.
language.
Well, I don't know if you've ever taken any kind of character strengths, like your strengths and what I call your inner
Like the
talents.
Clifton Strengths Finder and
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. And I call these inner talents
Okay.
because they're gifts of who we truly are. They're inner talents that you're born with. So if you look at mine was spiritual. Mine is my
Mhm.
number one is spirituality. And
Okay.
so, and
Very cool.
and pretty awesomely that my top core value is spirituality. So they coincide really greatly there.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, so I was able to probably see things differently, just like these little mathematicians or, prodigies of any kind. I was probably a spiritual prodigy in a lot of ways and could just see things as they were and see things from a bird's eye perspective. So that did help me know how to get through a lot of things.
Okay.
But the shame, oh my God, that's something
Mm-hmm.
that took a long time. And again, that's part of that spiritual abuse that went through, right? Because everything was
Yeah.
shameful. It was very shameful
Shame
to,
is a tough animal.
yeah. And you have to be careful how you speak to your kids. Like, you disappoint me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God my parents didn't do that. But these kids who parents do say that, that is shame.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw the movie of or the TV show The Game of Thrones, and they got the queen going through the alleyways, and they have her completely naked. They shaved her head, and they're just going shame, shame, and
Oh,
people are hitting
jeez.
her with all this. And so there is that
Mm.
massive, horrible situation that you go through that creates this shame that carries with you. It creates fear. And which, everything
Mm-hmm.
is fear based, right? So when you think about all the things that you didn't do in your life, Megan, like you think about it now as an adult, we all still carry, unless you have broken through it,
Mm-hmm.
boldly, you still carry as adult, you're stopping yourself from relationships,
Absolutely.
opportunities, moving forward, being
Absolutely.
successful, having love in your life
Yes.
because it is trapped in this fear.
Yes.
But I will tell you, coming through all of this, I started studying the Greek and the Hebrew because I was like, how could God not love me?
Hmm.
How can I be imperfect and God wouldn't accept me as his child? So I started doing the Hebrew of the words and the things that are talking about. And I was like, oh, this isn't what it's talking about at
Hmm.
all.
Isn't
And I
that
do have,
fascinating when you really dive into the history of the writings and the original languages that they were
yes,
written in?
yes.
Fascinating.
I just met with this
So
doctor.
enlightening.
Yeah, I just met with this doctor this weekend in Dominican Republic, and he was talking about he has totally stripped the whole Bible down into the of everything that is in there into Hebrew of what was the first original language, and
Hmm.
um, he's like, Jonathan, it just blows your mind how, because he was a Baptist pastor. He was like, if we only knew what we knew or know now, we wouldn't be, we could, we hurt so many people. We've destroyed so many people's lives because what we think is in the Bible, it's not actually what it says. And homosexuality in the Bible had nothing to do with what we think of as
Hmm.
same-sex love,
It's
you
true.
know
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and it was just like what. So I
Yeah. That
started
word
to
didn't exist at the time. Yeah.
know, and it was talking about other things, prostitutes, little boy temple or temple prostitutes. It was talking about like a rape
Yes. There's a
and
biblical
different things.
scholar that I
Yeah.
follow. His name is Dan McClellan, and he goes through this very clearly. It had more to do with the sexual attitudes at the time and the fact that one would always dominate over the other, and there was
Yes.
no consent. And it didn't specify necessarily or distinguish between same sex versus opposite sex. It was speaking to the imposing of oneself on another without
Yes.
permission, without consent, and in a very degrading way. So, yeah, dominance
So
is, anyway,
So
not that that,
looking, yeah, well, no, because this is very important to people to understand this. Is if
yeah,
you're going through it, you're struggling. Not only is your child different than what you thought they were going to be, and it's like, and then you're struggling with the religious side of it. Let me
yeah,
just tell you, you can be free from that once you realize what it actually says in the Bible. And so
exactly.
I was the kid who started researching this at 19, 20 years old. And so I had a
Wow.
firm foundation early on. Because I was like, I have to
Good.
figure this out. I can't move on in my life until I figure this out. I took a break from college for 2 years, served in a church, and studied all this.
Mhm.
But once I realized it, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm
You
good.
were free. Mhm.
But still, because I love church, I love the community, I love that people are there to serve a higher being, and I
Mhm.
love the music and the fellowship. But I was 32, I think, or something like that. And I was serving in a big church here in LA. And they were like, we love you. We don't care where you are in your walk with God. We just want you to serve. We want you to be a part. Well, I'm serving in the music department, and they come up to me and in choir rehearsal, and the director comes over and she says, Jonathan, we can't allow you to wear tank tops to choir rehearsal. I was
Okay.
like, we're in the middle of Los Angeles, and this church is in the middle of the entertainment world, and she is wearing a string top bikini, a top, with the string, but yet
Uh-huh.
she's telling me I can't wear
Spaghetti
a tank
strap.
top, a spaghetti strap. Thank you. And I said, you want to tell me what this is really about, because none of this is making sense to me right now. Like nothing was adding up.
Good for you
And
for
she was
saying
like,
that.
well, we can't have somebody with the same sex relationship and that are not married. And I was like, well, it's not legal to be married, but we live together. We have checking accounts together. We have business together. We have a house together. What else do you need? And she was like, well, I mean, and they kicked us off of the platform.
Oh, so sorry.
And begin, I understand, right? Because you don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to, this doesn't make sense for them. So I understood. I didn't get angry, but when they were like, we can't have you on the platform, but would you like to serve on the cleaning crew or the service crew? I was like, oh, so I can clean your toilets, but I can't sing worship up on the
Oh,
stage.
geez.
And, I came from a life of optics and what was right or wrong or how everything was perceived. And at that very moment, I said, this will be the last time this will ever happen in my life. And I will just have to say, I've not been back to it, that kind, not to a religious church since, like,
Hmm.
somebody that
You
faces
took
that.
ownership of your
I go to a
journey.
spiritual center that is just amazing. It's beautiful. You have all walks of life. You have different
Hmm.
religions that come in and just worship God, who they see as God. And we learn and we grow as incredible human beings
I love that for you
in
and
our
for them.
light and
That's
stepping
great.
into our light. And
Yeah.
so, it's a journey. And I'm telling you that shame is a horrible thing that will keep you bound. It keeps you bound like chains. And it's just like chains you down to the ground where you cannot fly. And God did not create us to be bound. God created us to be free, to go out and be huge
Yeah.
impacts in the world, to create, to pick up the largest stone that you can throw it out into the water and create a ripple effect that is going to echo throughout humanity. And like I always say, if you're not walking in your greatness, if you're not walking in the design that God made you in, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're also robbing the rest of the world of our blessings.
Yeah. I feel that. I agree with you. If we can push through that fear that sometimes shame locks in for us, if we can push through that, often with a support person, a mental health support person,
Yes,
so much is unlocked. And I love the imagery you're using. The word expansive is what comes to mind. You were talking about God did not create us to just kind of be in this box. I believe we are expansive beings,
yes,
just like everything else around
yes,
us is expansive. And none of us know everything that there is to know about all aspects of living on this planet. When you think about trees and animals and plants and other places you can live, other countries, the deep waters, the high peaks, there's so much that we just don't know. And I love to view things from a more expansive lens and
yes,
lean
yes,
so
yes,
much
yes.
more into curiosity, lean so much more into uncertainty. It actually feels better to me. It was really scary at first, but to me, that's what often feels more healthy and centered. Gosh, I have so many questions I could throw out, but I've kept you. So, um, just maybe a couple more. If there are pain points that you maybe haven't had a chance to mention or speak to, what would you like others to know about what it's like to journey in this space? And I'm going to use your space specifically, right? You're a person of faith, right? You were raised in a conservative faith. You have defined how that faith looks like for you. You have taken the reins of that. So you still consider yourself, observing and practicing in your faith. What would you like others to know about this space of your chosen profession, a person of faith? I mean, you were also in the you have a significant social media following. Yeah, are there any things that maybe we haven't touched on that come
Well,
to mind?
there is because, you're talking about your child being trans. My
Mm-hmm.
nephew is trans. I have so many people in my life that I know who are trans. It just, and my heart loves people. But I will tell you that, we were taught such definitive things like, no, this is what it is, this
Mm-hmm.
is what it isn't. And as I began to work with kids, I knew nothing about former lives or reincarnation. I was taught that was of the devil and all these things, although it's not spoken about in the Bible at all. All it says is that we'll know our loved ones. And I began to look at these kids and I would think, who were you in a former life? Because their knowledge was too broad, it was too vast, their gifts were just too unbelievably amazing.
Isn't that the truth? Oh my
And
goodness.
I said, what makes sense to me is because I used to say that my mom was my soulmate. I did. She's like my soulmate. And I didn't know what that meant. Like, I had no idea, right?
That
It's
is
just something, a term I
awesome.
threw out there,
That is so awesome. I love
and
that.
I read this book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And once I read that book, and it was about this lady who had all these different lives that she had lived that had created fear, compounded fear after fear after fear in her life, that she could not break through these things. But as she went back and experienced those lives, she was able to break the fear. And, you know, again, what do I know? We don't know what is and what isn't, to be quite honest, but this is something that for me, intuitively, as well as analytically, makes common sense to me. Is that why are we have all of these people feeling like they're not born in the right bodies? They feel like, hey, I'm born as a man, but I'm feeling like a woman. I feel like I'm in the wrong body. Well, I believe that it's part of the reincarnation process that people are still feeling like they're attached to the past life. And I truly believe that with no judgment, that we come into this life to learn. And I think that
Hmm.
rather than learning, people are trying to change back into their former life where I believe that we're supposed to lean into it and move forward. And so even when my niece at the time was wanting to to transition to a boy, he's still not fully transitioned, but has had his breast removed and all of that. But I was like, listen, I just want you to think about this. That what if you came into this life as, and I've never shared this thought process in public ever in my life because it's just in my head, right? Just how I feel
Hmm.
about things.
Hmm.
It makes sense to me. But what if you are still identifying and you're coming in? Like, I know as a little boy, like when people meet me, people are not going, "Oh, I'm not probably
Hmm.
stereotypical in a lot of ways," but that's only because it's been a choice that I've learned. I've embraced my being a guy and just, just embraced it. But as a little boy, I did want to wear my mom's high heel shoes. I did want to dress up in her
Hmm.
closet. I did want to have those things. And because I thought, I mean, it felt normal to me. Going out
Yeah.
and playing sports in the heat in Texas did not sound like fun to me as a little boy. I wanted to be with my mom. I wanted to be underneath her at all times. And so, but had I not taken the chance to grow into who I am today, I might have taken a different path. And I'm thankful that I stayed on the path that I'm on
Hmm.
and accepted who I was born as. And, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. There's no right or
Hmm.
wrong in this to me. It's just, it is, like as you said, it is. And it's a choice. But I just think that it would be helpful for people if I could understand that, hey, maybe this is a life that we lived in our past life that we're stepping into thinking, oh, well, I'm still identifying as this. It would make more sense to me if that was the
Hmm.
case. Again, I'm not
Yeah.
God, so I don't really know, but
No,
that's what makes sense to me.
I appreciate you opening this dialogue, and I that's not a perspective I've heard before, and I think it's just a totally normal human response. We do try to make sense of what's going on around us, and I have my ways that I've tried to make sense, right? And um, a less talked about and less known community is the intersex community, and that one has informed me a lot on my understanding of gender and sexuality, that there truly are individuals who are born in some way with both sets of reproductive organs in some way. And so for me, I tend to go back to what I said a few minutes ago about having this expansive view. There's just possibly going to be things that I just don't fully understand, but I don't have to in order
Amen.
to love,
Right?
right? And it's not my experience, right? Like I can't tell somebody what they're feeling inside or what they're experiencing or processing. That is that is not my role in their life, regardless of my blood relation to them or not, really. I think we can just I believe we started our conversation out about talking to people, listening to people. I think all too often when we listen to somebody, we're listening in order to respond or
Yes.
rebut versus listening just to hear them, just to
Curiosity, like you
learn.
said, curiosity is
Yeah.
everything.
And I think this is especially, I I'm indulging a little bit in this conversation because the recent election and some of the hot button topics, and every pretty much every state has laws and bills on the docket that are specifically directed towards transgender, non-binary, and intersex folks. And you know what I really learned to embody in this journey as a parent? I had heard the scripture all my life growing up, how Jesus went after the one. He left the 90 and 9 and went after the one. And I think I didn't get it. No, I know I didn't get it. I think we can learn a lot. It's too easy to dismiss someone's experience if it makes us feel uncomfortable, if it's a more rare, if it's one we don't understand and we can't explain logically or with current research where it stands, right? But that one still has infinite value and worth to our creator. And therefore, it can, and I'll insert should be the same for us. That's my personal take on it anyway. Um, Last question. My podcast is called Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I purposely dropped the A. So my question is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
This is what I call being a rock star.
Okay, let's
It's
hear
so
it.
funny, because my company is Unleash Your Rockstar, and I let go of the music world, the entertainment world, and I was like, I believe that every single person already has innately inside of them a rock star,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that is unabashed, somebody that is unapologetic. They are showing up strongly in their gifts, their talents, and when again, those inward talents, not external, and are fully aligned in their flaws, understand them, are working on them, but not ashamed of them. Again, the word ashamed, there's
Mm-hmm.
no shame
Mm-hmm.
there, there's no fear of
Mm-hmm.
judgment, but it's like being a flock star. And to me, this is living in your truth of who you are, understanding your value proposition in the world. Understand what makes you special, what makes you powerful, what is making you be the impactor, understanding your place in the world where you thrive. And this is why this conversation is so important to me. And the work that I do is because I was that little gay kid who did not fit into the box of the world that I was raised in, the world
Right.
that I thought that I was supposed to be in. Losing
Right.
my father last year, he still said, I still, son, I feel like you missed your calling. And
Oh,
and
wow.
but I understood what he was saying, but he couldn't understand my that what he thinks I was supposed to do inside of a church, I'm doing for the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm helping people to walk
Amen.
into the light, to walk
Mm-hmm.
into the spotlight that God created is shining down from the heavens and saying, boom, this is where you're supposed to be. Now get your butt up in there. And
Yeah.
and to me, that is what being a rock star is all
Yeah.
about. And this is we all have it. We just need the tools and the
Mm-hmm.
permission to
Yeah.
let it be unleashed.
You found your calling. You created that space knowing it was something that hadn't previously maybe been defined or um yeah, created. Love this. I'm like I have just been on the verge of almost tears, high energy, just so beautiful. Oh my gosh, this conversation, just love it so much. So appreciate your time. I always throw out a few questions, get to know you, personal basis, 1 to 2 word answers. I'm just going to shoot them out.
Okay.
Tell us your favorite book.
The Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss.
Love it. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I know this one already.
Extrovert
Of course.
extreme.
Are you night owl, morning lark?
Used to be a night owl that has turned to a responsible early bird.
Love it. And who is your favorite artist? And you can name one of yours.
Oh, Garth Brooks.
Okay. And do you
Oh, no,
have a
no, Dolly Parton. I'm going to say Dolly Parton
okay,
because who she
both good
is just
choices.
beyond
She's
amazing.
gem. Do you have a celebrity crush? Or who is your celebrity crush?
I don't have one.
You don't have to. And do you do still or carbonated water? Do you do diet soda? What's your favorite beverage?
I love half Dr. Pepper and half Diet Coke, even though I try to break that
Um,
awful demon off of me every day.
okay. And then the last furthest place you've traveled.
Bali,
Oh, that's a good
where
one.
I had my rebirthing.
Oh, I want one of those. Ah, thank you so much, Jonathan. You're a gem and a light. Beautiful person. I can't wait for this to publish. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on here, and blessings to everybody who's listening to this. And I just really encourage you to step into your power, to step into your gifts, and be a light into the world.
Yes. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.